please call the roll.
Biondi,
Here.
Brantley,
Here.
Gebhardt,
Here.
Kine,
Here.
Slaughter. All present.
And let the record show that our alternate liaison, Mr. Stanky, is in attendance. Let's see, where are we now? Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented unless someone has a request to amend it?
I have a request. Is now the time?
No. I need a motion.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, we need a motion to approve the minutes, the regular minutes from the April 4th meeting. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes as listed as item 5A on the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, citizens input time. Is there anybody here for citizens input? Seeing none, we will move on. We have 2 items to consider under business for the consent agenda. I will open the consent agenda for the CRA to pull any items for discussion.
I'd like to pull number 2.
That's what I was going to say.
Okay. Do we need to vote on that?
Chair, yes, the board can vote on approving item number 1, and then the second item that has been pulled then could be discussed and then voted on.
Okay, so we can approve the consent agenda with the other item other than the one that was pulled. Do I have a motion for that?
Why don't you just, the motion should probably read, motion to approve CRA Resolution 2-23. That will give it very precise.
Okay, what he said. Can we have that motion?
Motion.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Biondi,
Aye.
Brantley,
Aye.
Gebhardt,
Aye.
Kine,
Aye.
Slaughter.
Aye.
All ayes, motion carried.
Okay, Mr. Brantley, if you would, you want to discuss the item that you've pulled? You
I
can
would
open the discussion.
Yeah, I would move to amend the motion adopting CRA Resolution 3-23, adopting the budget for fiscal year 2024, to include a clarification that within that budget, we stick to the April 2022 decision that this board made regarding the $5,000 per bike night funding.
Any other discussion? Would anybody like to discuss what we're... Janice?
I agree with Commissioner Brantley because we did vote last April, and I feel that city staff has no authority to ignore or overrule our policy that was approved by this board. And the maximum amount that we had voted on for sponsorship was $5,000 per event, and I don't believe that we should have any exceptions for that.
Point of order. Is the question dealing with the specific resolution 3-23, or is it the accompanying attachment, the actual proposed budget for fiscal year 2024? I guess I'd go to you, Jim.
Well, I think that I just want to make it clear that if we're approving a resolution that adopts that budget, that we clarify what our approved spending amount is as approved April of 2022, because it was clear from our last meeting that there was some misunderstanding or miscommunication about that. Whatever it was, we made a decision with regard to that funding a year ago. To my knowledge, we've not entertained any changes to that decision, haven't heard no presentation seeking something different than that. And I just want to make sure that as we move forward, we don't gloss over this misunderstanding and carry it forward. We made a decision, and unless and until there's a presentation and we have discussion and we change that decision, I want to make sure that the fiscal year '24 and thereafter budget include a $5,000 cap per bike night.
Mr. Mason, do you want to address this?
Sure. Right now, the budget does include bike night at $60,000, but if you wanted it three bike nights at $5,000 apiece, we'll put $15,000 in there, and that will be the adjustment to the budget, but the dollar value of the budget doesn't change.
Okay, I have.
Overall, dollar value of the budget doesn't change.
I have a question about that then. If we're doing, then the bike night amounts shouldn't be separate. It should be just incorporated in what we are giving for sponsorships, correct?
Correct.
And then the other $45,000, can we move that someplace else?
Absolutely. Where do you have I mean, I think we would just recommend that you put it into your projects or
In our
the grant
projects.
program that the executive director has proposed to you.
If that's the will of the board.
Do we have projects that we would like that moved into, or do we have a general fund for projects? No.
No. No, that's why
Everything
I
has
think,
to be specific.
you know, we don't know what the dollar value that we're going to end up expending on this grant
Correct.
program. So, you know, parking it there for, you know, for now would be a convenient place to put it until you need to apply it to a project sometime in the future.
Okay, we just have to be very careful that we stay within our plan, correct?
Well, yes.
Okay.
You always have to go by the CRA plan.
Correct.
And you also have certain rules and policies that you guys have adopted regarding events and the caps. So that's what you're trying to follow.
Okay. Yeah, Jim.
I want to make clear, I'm neither for or against $20,000 per bike night. I have no idea if I am. All I know is the last time we discussed it was April of 2022, and the decision, as reflected in the presentation that was made that night on the budget, as well as in the minutes, was we approved $5,000. So to learn last meeting that somewhere along the way went to 20,000 without our discussion and approval, I don't think we can operate like that. If there is a reason, a justification, a need for that amount to go up, I'm all ears. Put it on an agenda and you may get my support. But until that time, it's important to me that if we are truly going to be the stewards of this TIF money and this amount of money that's carved out for the CRA, then I would hope that when we make decisions like that on the budget, that it's honored.
We agree.
Okay.
We agree. There's no issue here.
Okay.
Do we have a motion to approve it with the 5,000 cap yet?
Yes,
We need a motion to do that.
I made that motion.
Right, correct.
I'll second it, if you made the motion.
Any further discussion? Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Biondi,
Aye.
Brantley,
Aye.
Gebhardt,
Aye.
Kine,
Aye.
Slaughter,
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, now we will move on to CRA Resolution 2-23, 3-23. There should be a staff presentation. This is Breaking the Barriers to Business Grant Program.
Oh, I see.
On that item and the next item on the consent, we just moved to approve those. Did you want a presentation on them?
We just approved them.
You just approved them, but if you want, we can give you a presentation on it.
Anybody need that? No? Yes?
I only had a question on it.
Well, now's
In
the
fact,
time.
Ms. Woodbury's standing up right now.
I am.
It might be helpful, I read, I think, a recent RFP on I believe it's the strategic plan, but
Yes.
one of the components was a visioning component.
Yes.
So when I heard about both Cape Competes and then this particular program, Breaking Barriers. That might be a really good opportunity to engage both property and business owners in the CRA on what some of their concerns are. You know, simply just input. Because in other words, I've seen, well, in fact, there's another issue coming up later that deals with Resilient Lee that also deals with the community survey. So I just think that might be an opportunity to not only help break barriers, find out, you know, who are the real stakeholders, where are the opportunities, especially where you've seen people assemble property to hopefully do something. So that was just my point, was you might want to, I don't think, was there an overlap between, on the economic development, that visioning? Because I saw that broad enough that it could be used in sub-area if need be.
It was pretty broad. So there were a number of components of the strategic plan. One of them was an analysis of our incentive programs and whether they're effective or not. And so we will have an opportunity to engage with the business community and stakeholders for all of those components. So it wasn't specific to this, but we have the opportunity to do so.
Thank you. Okay, moving right along. Now we'll move on to unfinished business. Inventory of items stored at Lafayette Street.
Good afternoon. My name is Rigo Chacon, and give me a quick second as I try to find the slide.
Are we skipping over the inventory?
No, it's hidden in one of the slides.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, this is not mine.
That's landscaping. So where is yours? No.
I think that's it. There we go. Okay, regarding the, by the way, my name is Rigo Chacon with Public Works. Regarding the inventory, we were asked to, the last meeting, we found out that there's a hodgepodge of equipment and materials that were out there in 3 or 4 different locations. So it was very difficult. So just to let you know, at Lafayette, there's 600, the back portion, there's 600 something square feet out of the 2,200 square foot building. Chester Street, the fire bay, that's 3,000 square feet, storing police equipment as well as material and everything else regarding the CRA, as well as we also had some in our own building and property management. So what we started doing is just consolidating, cleaning up, a little spring cleaning. So what we found, and we started consolidating, bought racks, bought containers. We have, we know the banners that were always there. We have some 1,500 linear feet of street wiring, different types of wiring that were out there for all the whole CRA areas, especially the medians that for some reason always get hit. I'm learning, right? We also had some power stations also that were in the median, so we actually have additional power panels that are in there inside the Lafayette building, that little garage area. We have probably 300 different types of decorative lighting that goes around, wraps around trees. We haven't collected everything. And miscellaneous components that were out there. We also have some potted carriers, right? Put some plants inside there. Didn't want to get rid of those quite just yet. So just to let you know that that's what we found in there. We're still cleaning, we're still purging some stuff, going through lights to make sure that they're operational. Out at Chester Street, we've also found a whole bunch of MOT, the transportation barriers, bollards, cones, and the like.
Can I say something?
And yes, ma'am.
So kudos for cleaning up the room from the last month.
We're not done yet, ma'am, just to let you know, we're not
It
done
looks a
by
lot
any.
better than it did.
It does.
And what would be, you'd say, the percentage of actual CRA stuff is in that storage unit versus?
I'm gonna say 80-90% of it is only CRA that's in there right now.
So the cones, would you consider that CRA or the barriers?
Well, in the Lafayette building, there are no cones. That's only at the Chester Street
Okay,
Resource
so
Center.
the top
So,
pictures
top
is,
right picture, the only thing that is there, and we're actually gonna be moving it here in the next week or two, is in that top right picture, there's a little Christmas tree that we use. We're actually found a home for it in the Chester Street as it's being remodeled. So we have to, it's sensitive to temperature, so we're gonna be relocating that here in the next 2-3 weeks when Chester Street opens, well, it gets cleaned up by insurance. So everything else is in there is strictly CRA.
because in my opinion, a lot of that stuff looks more like special events than CRA stuff.
The bottom photo.
So the top part is like the lighting.
The top part is Lafayette, the bottom part is Chester Street.
Correct.
So what's in those containers, those storage?
We have banners, we have the,
So 80% you think is in the storage for that on Lafayette,
correct,
the CRA stuff?
correct. And we actually have some stuff in our own property management building that we're gonna, once we get rid of that Christmas tree, once we find another rack, we're gonna just relocate the stuff that's in our building into the CRA building, into that garage.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you
Thank you.
thank you for recognizing the efforts in,
You're welcome.
No more
Don't
raccoons.
forget
a
Hoarders-
lot of
hoarders
work
now.
went into those pictures.
Big
Yes.
difference.
Thank you so much.
I
Okay.
believe I'm in the next.
We will now move on to item number 9, new business, a review of hurricane damages.
And I'm back. So just to let you know, we're continuing with the whole FEMA site inspection process. We're performing inspections, literally, we started about a month ago, 1 or 2 here or there with the FEMA site inspections. We've done some turnkey projects with insurance, which is the Chester Street. And we started doing some more internal, FEMA allowed us to do some internal inspections. So we're grabbing some of these out there probably 2 weeks ago. We're, hot and heavy with the inspections literally today, as well as 3 days last week. So with that, let's see, the hard part for me, especially with all these damages, everyone wants to try to hurry up and try to get out of this stuff before the next rainy season. And so we're just working through that process, right? We've identified all these things with risk. We've given all these things with FEMA. Now it's just buttoning up some of this documentation and get some work done. So for the Lafayette building, the roof, the flat section, we're getting some quotes back from the contractor and hopefully try to get that done June, July timeframe at the latest.
Any questions?
He's still talking.
There's a question off to my right.
Not a question, but a comment. In the mayor's email for the monthly, what would it be? Yeah, for May, Lee County is hosting a Resilient Lee program. And then on May 10th, they'll actually be doing a neighborhood meeting. So the reason I bring that up is why the whole issues of the CRA are, we've gone through some damages that. Now's a good time to participate in that. They've got actually, if you go to their website, resilientlee.com, they actually have a survey questionnaire, Google form, about maybe a dozen questions, but it lets you walk through and present a lot of the types of issues. And I think down the road, and that's why my comment back to Ms. Woodbury with economic development is, as we look at the CRA down the road, we're gonna wanna continue and engage those particular people, especially where you have a business where certain things, and I'm just thinking of something really simple. internet. 6 months later, Greg, how's your internet? You know, and it hits, I don't know why, middle of the day when you're cranking big data loads and stuff, and it's like literally taking a brand new computer, demoting yourself to like something from 10 years ago where you're used to a certain speed. So I think there's an opportunity as we look into both improvements for the CRA, but also those long-term investment opportunities to really create value beyond just simply one development or one use, but for the broader area. So I think the Resilient Lead program, and I appreciate the city participating with that and hosting it, because I think it's gonna help us look at those things, especially as we get into not just our land development code, but our planning documents. You know, where do we want to have mixed use? Where do we want to have things? You know, some areas that flood out, okay, well, you can still utilize them, but in a way in which long-term, is that something we want to put capital dollars in and risk that? So with that, thank you.
So at the Chester Street Resource Center, the roof has been, there was some minor damages that's been repaired. Insurance is laying carpet this week. We'll be doing some interior doors this week and next week. So hopefully try to get that back up and running by mid this month, 2-3 weeks. Streets and tree lights. So at the end of the day, we still have some pedestals out there that are going to be used that we need to be repaired. We've got the scope that's out there, and we're going to try to do a lot of this stuff in-house, or some of the stuff in-house. So it'll be a lot easier and faster to get out there and get repaired. We are going to still have some leaning poles that we're going to have to, of course, outsource and work with LCEC and the like. The 47th Terrace electrical panels, we have those on, we're finding sources for, right? The hard part is for some of these that were already had the artwork associated to them, we're going to be working with the art studio and try to figure out, go back with the original as we can. The swale, that one, what is it? We're still going to continue. That's in our side.
Can you go back to the last one? I just wanted
Sure.
to add something to that. This is Damon Grant, Public Works Department. At the last meeting, the April 4th meeting, you guys asked us to hit on a little bit of 47th Terrace and the electrical panels. And why we put this particular item into the slideshow, it's very important because these are the panels that were submerged as part of Hurricane Ian storm surge. And these panels, they're the brains, if you will, of a lot of systems up and down 47th Terrace and even extended over to Cape Coral Parkway. They control the cameras, the Wi-Fi, certain decorative lighting systems, all of the pedestals and the medians. So when I think it came up at the last meeting, it was questioned why we didn't have cameras. I think there might have been some vandalism. When this comes up, and I just learned from our electrical shop that we do have the quotes in, and I think this is going through procurement so that we can start this work, will basically provide us at least a temporary solution to get all of our systems back up and running, which have been critical for us for this area as far as Wi-Fi, the CCTV, thank you, and the decorative lighting, which everybody enjoys as we come up to the holiday season. So just wanted to add that in there for the 47th Terrace electrical panels.
I want to just bring something up because that one of the things you said is one of my biggest concerns, especially with the shootings that occurred downtown Fort Myers last week. That, you know, I know they said last time that FEMA doesn't cover the landscaping, but I'm very concerned about cameras and liability, you know, and the Wi-Fi or whatever. So I'm glad you kind of brought that up and you're aware of that, because that to me is a really, the cameras are a big thing to me for security.
And that brings up another issue is we will continue to look at some temporary cameras that we can put up if this is going to run out for any length of time until we can get it fixed. So I think we had mentioned that the last time, and just speaking with Rigo, that's in the works. So we'll see if we can put some temporary cameras or something that can give us eyes out there in the meantime.
Do we have a timeline, like, you think it's gonna be a month? Do you think?
I'm going from memory here, but we received the quotes, and I believe that they were looking at 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, one more question on that. Right now, it looks like everything in all those pictures is set in like very close to the ground too. Is there any way, and I don't know if it'd be cost effective or even possible to raise everything a little bit for the next time? I'm sure it's not gonna be the
Right. I mean, we've mentioned several of those items as part of the hazard mitigation grant program as the actual hardening of our systems. So that was something that was discussed. And as we move forward with some of those projects, it could be eligible for some of that money as well.
Correct.
Cool.
Unfortunately, it's TBD right now. So, but we have identified that as a hazard mitigation. I think that's it, unless you have a question.
And what are we gonna do about the wraps? You said some were damaged. Can we re-wrap them?
If we have to replace the whole panel, right, the exterior portion, then we will have to look at rewrapping those. We're trying to salvage them so that they're not, we don't have to. I think there was 2 of them that were.
Good afternoon, Persia Zambrano, Interim Public Works Director. We also put together a PowerPoint, and our arborist, Omar Leon, is going to walk you through. At the last meeting, the committee asked for an update on landscaping and what can be done in order to replace what was damaged and improve, and lessons learned. So Omar is going to go through it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Omar Leon. I'm the city arborist under Public Works. As Persis has mentioned, I was asked to come and discuss post-storm damage on the CR area to our landscape and our treescape based on previous discussions held in other CRA meetings. Just to run you guys through this post-storm damage within the CR area. So we experienced within 47th Terrace alone over 65 trees and palms that were lost due to Hurricane Ian. In addition to that, there are additional trees in the CRA area that we have lost due to Hurricane Ian. And a lot of this has to do for a number of reasons. I'm going to share that with you as we move along in the presentation. I always tell folks there's not one thing that causes full tree failure. It's a combination of things, but of course, with a hurricane, as we can tell, the hurricane itself and the wind had a big impact on some of our palms and trees. In addition to that, the CRA area, I wanted to make clear, we did see significant salt damage through saltwater intrusion in a lot of the low-lying areas, which impacted a lot of our landscapes. And additionally, irrigation infrastructure was compromised in a lot of the existing CRA irrigated areas as well. Due to the flooding and other components as well. So I believe you guys have probably seen some of these photos. I've added additional photos, but in previous presentations. But typical damage that we've seen in the CRA area post-storm as tree failure. If you look at is there a way to use no, it's not. The left photograph, this is kind of the failure that that as an arborist we would like to see, because it's showing that the tree's root structure was very well rooted and well, it had a decent root system. As you start moving along in some of these other areas where you have the root failure taking place at the root plate, there's a lot of components to that. It could be improper root structure at the time of planting, or improper soil structure as well. And I'll get into that as well. So we also had canopy damage throughout the area. A lot of this has been corrected already through restoration pruning, and we continue doing restoration pruning in not just the CR area, but throughout the entire city as a post-storm recovery efforts. Here in these photographs here, we go back to the root structure damage itself. A lot of this root structure failure occurs because of improper soil volume. So trees, one of the things that I like to express to folks all the time is, a tree can only grow as big as the soil volume available to it. If you don't provide appropriate soil volume, as you see in that picture on the right on the Cape Coral Parkway, you can have failure take place at the root plate itself because it doesn't have the proper ability to perform or to grow a appropriate root system for that specific species. In addition, we lost, as you see in the photograph on the left, this is on 47th Terrace. A number of trees were lost due to recovery efforts post-storm. So these are younger trees that weren't 100% rooted in yet, but because of them uprooting due to their root systems not being fully developed, these trees were or had to be removed or cut to allow for safety for emergency vehicles to pass by if it was blocking the roadway or the sidewalk. And so in going into the future, we're going to look at other ways of abating that from happening. And then, as we look into the future, this is one of the other things that I was asked to discuss or open up the discussion on for feedback from the group. We look at how we're going to properly plan for future streetscape development. And I wanted to make it clear to the group that, our urban landscapes are a vital component to the economic development of the district. And proper planning and execution using industry best management practices will yield a higher return on the investment economically, and also allow trees to provide the social and cultural benefit that they can provide to the area. And this is just an example of before and after of a streetscape in a local Florida city. And this is also in what's considered the CR area, and the economic, improvement or economic benefit just from this one project alone is well worth the investment. We also look at how we select proper tree species. Of course, we have this discussion all the time in the industry, and we hear from our stakeholders, how do we pick those hurricane-proof trees and palms? And I can tell you that in the arboriculture industry, no tree or palm is hurricane-proof. We have to understand that you can pick trees and palms that are more resilient to hurricanes. However, hurricanes are active gods, and therefore there's a lot of factors that can take place that can cause failure within any tree species. But we look at planting Florida-friendly type species and native species as well. And we do look at identifying, or we should be looking at identifying those species that are still more resilient to hurricanes, not hurricane-proof, but more resilient to hurricanes. And a lot of those will be our native type species, which are adapted to the climate of South Florida, or Southwest Florida in this case. We also have to look at how do we build our streetscapes, and how do we move forward with the implementation of streetscape designs in the CR area. And there's a lot of technology out in the field which allow for trees to grow more appropriately in these type of conditions. These are just some examples of root ball anchoring systems, and like anything, there's a number of systems in the market. Not one, I always say there's not one system that works for everything. In looking at the assessments, there are some trees actually right now on 47th Terrace that had root ball anchoring in them, but there are the systems that I think will be more suitable for the type of trees in here. The good thing about the root ball anchoring system, or the one thing about the root ball anchoring system I want to make clear, is that it's only as good as the root system. So if you have trees with poor root stock from the beginning, you're not going to have a good functioning root ball anchoring system. Root barrier is very important. I know we have trees growing in these areas surrounded by impervious surfaces, and therefore you get lifting of sidewalks. Once again, root barrier comes in different products and different thresholds. And so looking at this hard, as you see in the bottom left, it's typically a hard plastic resin root barrier. Those are the more effective ones in the, to be used in urban landscapes as well. And we have to look at adapting designs that allow for the proper health, long-term health and sustainability of our survivability of our tree canopy. At the end of the day, it all comes into the design. If the design is done right and we have proper placement of trees and selection of tree species, you're going to have a successful streetscape. This is just an example, kind of showing you about the soil volume we talked about before. I can't stress how important it is to have appropriate soil volume for trees within our streetscapes, especially when you have trees growing in impervious surroundings. Essentially we're trying to replicate a park setting in an urban environment, and the only way you're going to do that is to appropriately allow for soil volume so that the trees can grow root systems as they're intended to. And so these type of systems allow for trees to grow under impervious surfaces, improving long-term survivability and growth of the tree. And there's some examples of streetscapes that have these kind of systems, and kind of showing the types of tree sizes you can accomplish from this. And also looking at utilizing these type of designs to add for more appropriate stormwater management. I think it's something that we need to look at moving forward in our streetscape designs. This is a simple illustration of that. And lastly, it's like I said earlier, there's an added benefit to this at all, throughout the entire project. So this is a simple slide showing, how much more tree canopy percentages of, possible through these type of implementations, the soil volumes, the reduced electricity consumption, and other benefits that we can provide with proper streetscape design. And with that, I open it up to the board to provide any feedback or ask any questions.
Go ahead, Janice.
Okay, so I have a question. What are the next steps to move forward then to restore the CRE area?
Correct.
And also, I asked the question last meeting and I was told that FEMA does not cover landscaping. So can we use some of that money, the $45,000 from the bike night, to help pay for landscaping, or no?
Sorry, FEMA doesn't cover landscaping.
I know, you said that to me last
Right,
time. That's why I'm
okay.
asking, if FEMA isn't covering it, can we use some other money
You
that,
can use CRA funds to clean it up. Yeah, it's in the budget that you just adopted.
okay. So we don't need that $45,000 to help with the landscaping?
No,
You got it covered, okay.
got it covered.
Okay, and then, so what's the next step? And I'm not sure if I heard you right. You said something about the roots under the trees, because I know that was an issue before we did the infrastructure. The roots were bringing up the sidewalks and stuff.
So going back to how we're going to move forward, so we have a quote for $183,000 that Omar procured through the contractor to reestablish the landscaping as it was. And he's doing little improvements, but something.
Yeah.
Moving forward also for the root barriers and that type of approaches, I let Omar to talk about it.
Thank you. So, we're currently in the process of, staking up uprooted trees, trying to, preserve some of the existing tree canopy as much as possible, and we're looking at assessing those trees that have been effectively destroyed. Those trees will have to be, of course, removed. But at this point, on 47th Terrace as an example, our intent is to bring back that streetscape to its original design, so to speak, with some minor adjustments in tree species if needed to allow for more resiliency. I just wanted to present, because it was discussed about questions about uprooting of sidewalks and things like that, and how do you prevent that moving forward in the future, and that's what some of my presentation was on, is to how to discuss, or looking at the big picture moving forward. When we look at future development, how do we prevent that from happening, or abate that from happening?
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah. Is there an interest of the CRA board and the city to eventually look at a master landscaping plan? Because if you look at the CRA, it's a big area, But more importantly, there's about 2 or 3 different areas that are very distinct. They're not downtown, they're suburban. And then you kind of got that mix, and he said it exactly right, is I think there was an effort years ago to try to do the right thing, and they planted the wrong trees in the wrong place, and and it's like me explaining to my parents, and 15 years later, I'm up on the roof, chainsawing a tree down that I told them to move. So I think we're getting to the point now where some of the redevelopment can take care of itself. So if you're seeing a major development going in within that area, but how do you stretch those improvements to that block to maybe along? So not just like we had to do with 47th and Terrace, is design along that roadway what would go in. Well, we've got a lot of other areas. Greg, your side of the road, I would argue it's been probably more neglected than the other side of the road. So one of the things I think we ought to look at is, as we're looking at funding, not just simply where opportunities are, but where responsibility lies, is especially where you're dealing with infrastructure, water, being able to plant the tree, but also xeriscape. You see the areas where the city's done a very good job, because off of the traffic circle where our office is, they were able to take a tree and just plant it back up, and for the most part, kind of move some of the plants out, get the irrigation lines reestablished, but it's fixed. It took 5 weeks or 5 months to do it, but guess what? There was other pressing problems. So I think one of the areas we ought to look at, especially as we think closer to budget, is do we earmark and work with the city on looking at certain major areas of coverage, like in this case, a master plan for landscaping, but one that's reflective of the infrastructure that's in the area or will go into the area. Because sometimes the advantage of that tool is you may not be doing something for a couple of years, but as soon as you do, you go in, you sweep in, and then you build it, you landscape it just like your plan told you would. So that's something I think we ought to look at as a board.
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, now we will move on to, let's see. What are we moving on to? Item number 10, reports from staff.
Maureen Bice, Assistant to the City Manager. As part of your backup, all of you received the Community Redevelopment Agency Project Report. I would be happy to go through each of those projects if you'd like. And if you have any questions, we may have staff here that can answer those questions. And if you have questions we can't answer, we can get those answers to you. So it's up to the board if you'd like me to go through each of those projects in this progress report.
Anybody have any questions on any of the projects?
I don't have any questions, but I brought it up last meeting, and thank you so much for doing that for us.
Thanks to staff. Really, Public Works does a lot of the heavy lifting because most of the projects fall under them. They put together the information, just send it to me. I really just put it together in a nice packet, but the information comes from our actual project managers and the people handling the projects, so the credit goes to them, but thank you.
I got a question. Didn't at the last meeting, the city manager indicate that Public Works, that we're looking to put together, in other words, tie the new CRA position, but wasn't there an interest in also using an outside firm?
Yeah, so that was sort of our discussion, and I didn't have a chance to tell you my vision for the CRA when you were discussing the building, but we are advertising for the replacement of Helen's position, and we have the trade specialist that is down there doing routine work and maintenance. And then for all of these projects, because of the hurricane volume and the load of projects that have now been dumped on staff's regular load, I am looking to outsource the project management of all the CRA projects to a dedicated project manager that will focus exclusively on the CRA projects, so they don't get lost in the prioritization of what the city needs to accomplish with its capital budget and now all the hurricane work. I still think all these are important. They all need to be brought forward, and just analyzing the existing staffing and now the workload, it'd be best for us to not create another position, but to bring forward an additional staff person through the private sector too.
It's a good approach, because I've been in a position where you have level service issues that sometimes, yeah, having a staff member would be nice, but sometimes it's the resource, especially when it's in a more specialized area, and I think you hit on it well, because before I was even on this board, one of the things I remarked on was, wow, I really like their monthly report, because from that project management standpoint, you get to follow that bouncing ball. And, and if it's better, especially from a standpoint where you don't have to have a dedicated staff member to move them off, but take somebody who's already into that mindset, because they're probably already working on some of those things anyway. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and then just to close that discussion, my intent is to have all of these individuals operate out of the Lafayette building, which is why I was grateful that you didn't move forward with that. So there'll be a dedicated South Cape CRA staff down there. They can get the word out and market the Breaking Barriers to Business programs, hand out flyers. That people can come into that office to submit applications. The project manager can keep all the project files right there. So as soon as we can get all this staffed up and going, I see that being a good opportunity for us moving forward.
Question, do we have a timeline on when that project manager is going to be?
Right. This is Damon Grant from Public Works again. We provided some numbers off of our contract that we have where we outsource certain services, this being one of them for project management. We gave it to the finance staff of $150,000 for fiscal year 24. So we're anticipating to have those funds available for that position once these projects kick off, and as they kick off, we'll be ready for them with the position.
Will that be that will be a dedicated CRA expense? It won't be something that the city is paying for and then we reimburse?
Correct. This will be directly invoiced and paid by the CRA with the CRA administrative staff person.
Okay.
And they'll work closely with the project manager, so they'll know when they're on, when what hours, what days they're working, what they're working on, prepare the progress reports. It'll be.
Awesome, awesome. Anybody else? We're good? Okay. So, are there any other comments, any other staff reports? No? Yes? Maybe?
I just want to say thank you to the board for approving the Breaking Barriers to Business grant program. We're going to move into generating notice of funding availability and advertising it. One of the requirements we have in that program is that there'll be a small sign or something that advertises that this was a CRA South Cape funded project, and I think we're going to see great results. So I wanted to thank you for approving that.
Did the city used to, when they did the beautification for facade, also do a plaque? Because I know what's neat, I think, is in historic communities where you see the historic plaque or something. So seeing something like that, I kind of like, because I think there was some talk about, how does the CRA market itself?
When we did 47th Terrace and it was completed, if you go to the Vineyard Church and look across the street, there's a stone and there's a plaque with everybody's name on it. We're on the stone and we're still living, so.
I'm talking the specific recipients, because that way you get to throw the, you get to multiply it.
We'll have something. There's a requirement in there for a signage that displays that this was a Breaking Barriers to Business project, and people can then start to see it. And then once you get the first one, I'm sure there'll be a lot of media focus on it. That'll then generate interest in the program. We'll do some marketing through the city's communication staff, and we'll try to get to the businesses that we know in the South Cape that are struggling with issues now, and so we'll try to do what we can.
Anything else? Go ahead, Greg.
This isn't necessarily a comment, more of a question. Does anybody know what's going in back on Lafayette by the lot that the CRA owns? there's a new project going over there that they started building on a couple weeks ago.
I don't have my computer up, but we did launch a new map in the city now that you can go onto. It's, I think it's EDO projects.
If you go to capecoral.gov, to the city's website, one of the main, the buttons, the circular buttons across the middle of the homepage, one of them says EDO Interactive Projects Map, something to that effect. And if you pull that map up, and I can do over here, you can take a look.
Click on any parcel, and it will let you know if it's in review, has been approved, which means the review's done, but it hasn't been issued, and if it says issued, it's under construction. Whole city.
Yeah, if I could though,
think
what it
I
also
read-
does is it pulls up a map. So any project that's going through site development, entitlement, has a permit with the city, and I'm not talking like a roof permit, but, you know, some type like a quarter of a block from my house, I was able to look it up and go. But I saw that this morning. It's a really cool tool because you not only can see it, but often if it's in a permit, you can see what
Gonna
that
be
permit
dentist's
number is.
office, I think.
And that gives you obviously the opportunity to look into it deeper.
Can you pull it up, Mo? Do you? We're gonna pull it up. Maybe we can show you a live demo as well as find out the answer to your question.
Yeah, the weird thing about that particular place was that they had the dirt piled up and it was nice and a pretty package, and now it's all a mess again, so I don't quite understand what they're doing.
So it looks like 1214 Lafayette Street, according to our map, is, permit has been issued and work can begin. And the description for the project says Coral Dental and Denture Office.
What do you think of that?
Pretty awesome.
And that's available for anybody to use throughout the entire city. It's everything except residential. So we didn't want any, it's not.
And if I could, a plug to your new permit system, it takes that type of integration and it to work for you to actually pull this kind of a GIS map together. So that's one of those things that neat is because you can't do this map if that database isn't accurate and doesn't work for you.
You have something else you want to look up
A
now?
dental
I was just
office.
looking. I saw that other green rectangles at the parking lot off of Vincent.
That was like the dye.
Yeah, what's that?
They had that cheeky hut thing go up there, so that's probably that.
Remix Lounge at 4810 Vincennes.
Oh, Remix Lounge?
It used to be the Dive.
Yes. Right.
Anything else? Any other questions, comments? Board comments? Tom?
None, thank you.
Jim?
Of course. So first of all, I want to thank Melissa for the CRA commercial. And I asked permission if we could send it to the board members, which we did. And then we put it out there. And this morning when I checked it, there was 70 shares and 5.4 views, which is pretty awesome because that's all organic. And I scrolled down the government page and I didn't see really anything that came close to that. So my suggestion is that we try to do one once a month if possible. I know staff is busy, but maybe do one, what I had said before, at another meeting about what you shared with us about the hurricane stuff and let people know what's going on because I hear so much negative stuff about it. Maybe one on the nightlife, maybe one on the special events or the retail. Just maybe if we could do something, because I think all of us up here shared it, to my knowledge, and I put it on some other pages, whether somebody had 40,000, nice guys, you guys put it on your page, and they've got like 10,000 on yours. So we can help get that information out. So if there's any way that we can continue this, I think you would definitely have our board support of helping you get it out there and with the businesses. So thank you, Melissa, for sending that to us. My next question is, did we get the annual report that was supposed to be finished and due on March 31st? Did I miss that?
I will send you a copy. We do have that.
You do have it?
Yes.
Okay, because I don't recall. Did you guys get that?
No, we should all get that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I also wanted to thank Jessica from the art studio. I just met her and we went over the artwork and she was very helpful. I don't know where we're at with that. I think it was due.
It's not due till the 20-something, isn't it?
I thought it was.
Or maybe yesterday.
Did you guys vote?
I did it.
Yeah, we did it.
Has everybody done it?
You couldn't open it?
No, I couldn't, well, I could get it open, I couldn't vote. It wasn't giving me a link to vote.
Well, I had problems, so I went to the art studio and she sat with me because I'm so illiterate technically. So I appreciate her doing that for me. And I think that is it. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Time and place of future meetings. Our next regular meeting is Tuesday, June 6th, 3 o'clock in council chambers. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.